Alright, hi guys, this is ImArtsify and welcome to another tutorial. Now in this one we're going to be doing a pretty cool effect. It's similar to the stroke scope tutorial, except instead of being a stroke it's particles. Now it is a pretty nice tutorial. I haven't actually used this effect yet. I'm hoping to use it in a new edit, so I'm giving you guys the sneak preview of kind of how it's going to look, I guess. So I'm just going to play this through and let you watch the effect we're going to be creating, and then we're going to go ahead and get stuck in there and carry on doing it. So this is what we're going to be making. So as you can see, it's a pretty cool effect. You've got the particles coming in here, and then boom, carries on and gets the clip. Now, the thing that I didn't do when I made this example is put a clip before, so obviously you'd have a clip running under running, and then this would be the layer on top. So it like this, the particles come in over a clip, which makes it look really nice. If you add a color correction in, it looks really nice. So the way I've done it. So yeah, let's just get right in here. I'm going to make a new composition. I'm going to make it roughly 5 seconds long. We're going to call this particle scope transition. Okay, so I've got my clip. Let's just drag this in here. Now I'm going to scroll through to where he first scopes in. Well, this is actually my clip, so where I first scope in. If you're doing the weekly editing contest for this week, then you'll know that this is one of the clips I put in the clip thingy. Okay, right, here we go. So this is where he first scopes in, so I'm going to Command D or press Control D to duplicate the layer, and then on this one, the bottom one, I'm going to right click, go to time, oh, it's this side, freeze frame. So now, if I just hide the top layer quickly, if we scroll through, you'll see it's just this entire clip now. So I'm just going to drag this back so it matches there. It doesn't really matter where you position it because it's the same clip. So at roughly 1 second, I want this to happen. I'm going to hit T, and I'm going to grab the keyframe, the opacity here. I'm going to go forward 10 frames. I'm going to go forward 20 frames actually. Now I'm going to hit the middle button here, the middle little diamond shape. I'm going to go back to the previous keyframe and drag the opacity down to 0. So now it fades in. This beginning is very similar to the stroke scope tutorial. If you've seen that, you know what I'm doing. You want to duplicate this layer by pressing Command D. You want to then press T to bring the opacity up, and you want to drag these keyframes to match this, like so. So now the first frame is matched with the last keyframe with the last one. So now this one fades in, and it looks like nothing happens because there isn't actually anything done yet. So on this frame, on the last where it fades in on the duplicator clip, you want to find that this same spot on the layer above. So I'm just going to drag this over again and just find that spot, which is this frame here. Actually, I think I was a bit off. There we go. Now you want to hit Control Shift and D or Command Shift D if you're on a Mac, and then delete the previous layer. That will split the layer. So now what we have is, if I just mute them, we've got the clip fade in, and then it carries on playing. Now the thing we're missing here is that this bit, it's still the HUD. We want just to be the scope here. So now to do this, I'm just going to go to kind of this frame. I'm going to hide the layer above it so I don't mask that one by mistake. And we're going to then click this circle mask tool up here. If you've got the rectangle, hold the button down and click the ellipse tool. Now you'll then hold Shift and drag, so you can see we're starting to get the scope here. Now I don't want it to be super big, I want it to be just around the scope, so I'm just going to kind of guess roughly where it should go. Then you can use the mouse to drag it around, reposition it. And I'm going to make that layer visible again. I'm going to drag it beneath so I can then go back a couple frames, and then I can adjust where the mask is. What you can do is you can go to the mask, and where it says expansion, you can actually hide the mask by clicking this little button here, and then you can actually drag the expansion down so you can just get, I don't want the edges of the scope here, I just want the actual scope. So something like that will do, it's quite nice. I'm going to add a bit of feather, so maybe 2 feather. Actually no, I want to do 1 feather because it was quite noticeable if you're at 2. Okay, so now what we have, as you can see, the scope fades in, the rest of the clip fades in, and then we carry on playing. So that's the main stuff done now. You can actually drag that layer beneath. No, actually you can leave it on top. Now, just to avoid confusion, I'm going to name these layers. I'm going to call this back FF, so no, that's the back plate freeze frame. I'm going to call it back plate freeze frame actually. And then we can call this the circle plate freeze frame. So now I'm just going to bring the keyframe up for that again, so I know the opacity. Sorry. so I know where the stuff starts. And it comes in, and then he goes up, and boom, he shoots. Okay, so now we can actually get into the interesting stuff. The first thing you want to do is go to Layer, New Light. Now that's a bit weird, but just bear with me. It will probably be set on parallel or spot to start with. You want to change the light type to point, and you can ignore this. You don't need any of it. You just want to call the name emitter. Now it's a must do. You have to call the light an emitter. Hit OK. You might get a pop up when you first go to light saying it's only applicable on 3D layers or something like that. Just click OK on that. I get it when I apply it as well. Okay, so we want the light to start roughly 10 seconds before the fade in. So I'm going to hold down Alt and click the open square bracket button. Now that will start the layer where the playhead was. I'm going to then go to where I want it to end, which is roughly where the back plate starts to fade in, and hit Alt close square bracket, so that will then end the clip there. So now we've got this, we've got just a weird looking light in the middle of the clip. Now the thing is, with we're going to be using Trapcode Particular, sorry I should have mentioned that before. I'm sure you can use like CC Particle World or something like that, but I'm using Trapcode Particular in this example. I might do one for like CC Particle World in the future if people don't have Particular. With Particular, you can't make it without like having to animate the entire thing by hand. You can actually get it to follow the exact same mask you use for the circle plate. So I'll bring the mask back on here. You can use this exact mask as a track point. But the thing is, you can't just tell it to follow the mask. You have to have something for it to follow. Now under Trapcode Particular, if we go to Layer, New, Solid quickly, I'm going to call this Particles, hit OK. Now you can make it the same size as the light, so Alt, open square bracket, Alt, close square bracket. Now what you can do is, under Effect in Particular, if we go to Trapcode Particular and apply that, in the emitter you can see that there's an emitter type and there's one that says lights. Now you can basically get Trapcode Particular to emit the particles from a light that you've added. Now it will only emit them from the actual light that's called emitter. You have to have them called emitter 1, 2, 3, or just emitter. You can kind of keep going up to have more emitters. So that's the key thing you want to do. I'm just going to hide this layer just while we do this. So to get the emitter to follow the light, to follow your path, you go to Mask, so you hit M on the circle plate, click Mask Path and press Command or Control C. If you're on a PC, press Control obviously. Now on the emitter, hit P, on the emitter layer, the light, sorry, hit P to bring up the position, click the position, then press Command V or Control V to paste. Now as you can see, we've got this weird looking stuff going on here. Basically what's happened is, you've now got the light seems to be following the, you've got these keyframes. Now what you can do is, because we obviously want it to start, or we wanted the light to start, you can drag it back because they're all selected. And at the moment it cuts off here because it's only selected that certain area. So what you can do is, you don't need to move any of these ones in the middle. You can go to the last frame here, and you can just click and drag this last one here. So you can deselect all of them, and just click and drag this last one, and it will put the ones in the middle back to, it will like keep them in sync. So now you can see the light now follows the shape of the scope, and then it comes in. It's pretty cool at that. And then obviously if you unhide the particles layer, you can see that the particles follow the light around. So it's pretty cool. However, there's a lot of stuff needs to be done to the particles. So let's go ahead and jump in there. We want to zoom in a bit so we can see the keyframes a bit easier. Now on the first frame, so the first frame the particles are visible, you want to hit the stopwatch next to the particles per second under emitter and bring it down to 0. And then go forward 1, 2 frames, and you want to bring the particles up. To go forward 2 frames, you can hold Command or Control and press right arrow to go forwards, left arrow to go back, or you can just drag along a couple frames. And you want to change the particles per second to something like 750, that's what I used. Now that's quite a lot of particles, so obviously the worse your computer is, the less particles you should use because it takes time to render. So now as you can see, we've got the particles coming around like this. Now it's starting to look good already. Now a couple more things we need to do. We want to change the ending. Now obviously it just cuts off here. So, and actually we were lucky. What happens sometimes is if you leave the particles layer running a bit longer, you can see that because the light stops, the particles just start emitting up there. But because we decided to cut it off there, oops, go away, cut it off there, it doesn't actually do that. But we want it to fade out nicely once it reaches the top. So we're going to drag the particles layer forward maybe a couple frames, maybe 14 or so, not 14, sorry, 4. So on the last one here, you want to again hit U to bring up the keyframes. Next to particles per second, hit the little add keyframe button. Go forward literally 2 frames and bring it down to 0. Now what you want to do is find the keyframe where it hits the top, which is the one we actually started on, and you want to make sure the last one finishes there, so it stops emitting particles the second it gets to the top. So now we've already got it started looking right. Now you want to hold Shift and press T to bring up the opacity, hit this keyframe for that, and then go forward to the end of the thingy. I'm going to be spammed with emails here. Go to where you want the thing to end and bring it down to 0 opacity. So now it fades out, which is pretty cool. However, we don't want all these particles out here and they're going out quite wide and far. So to change that, you want to go to the particle kind of drop down where it says live per second. I'm going to put this at 0.35. So this lasts now literally 3.5 seconds. So now as it goes through, you can see it lasts quite a bit shorter. Obviously they start to die here, but they're still lasting quite a while. So I'm going to go maybe 2.5, make it half a bit maybe. So now the particles come through and it's not as long. That's what she said. Oh dear, I should stop making that's what she said jokes in tutorials, because that's just bad for me. Okay, so we've done that now. So it's starting to look pretty cool. Looks like a seesaw, seesaw, seesaw. So next thing we need to do is obviously make sure they stop flying out. So to do that, in the emitter section where it says velocity, I'm going to change the velocity down to something like, I'm going to go 85. It will then let that not come as far out. The velocity distribution, I'm going to go, actually no, the velocity random, I'm going to change that down to 10. And then I'm going to change the velocity from motion down to maybe 10 as well. So now it follows the path a lot more. The velocity motion is the one that you want to keep an eye on. It follows, if you put the velocity motion down to 0, it follows the exact path, but it doesn't look as natural. So I want them to flow a little bit. So I'm going to leave it at 10, so they do actually move without they move freely almost. Now where it says particles per sec modifier, change that down to none. Now it won't change it that much, but just in case you play with some of the light settings by accident, that will kind of avoid those problems. Now where it says emitter size, you want to bring that down to 1, and 1 on all of them. So now it's a lot more of a solid trail, it's not as wide. So that looks pretty cool already. Now I'm thinking that the particles aren't dying as quickly as I want them to, so again it's just lifetime. I'm going to bring it down to 0.15, so it lasts even shorter now. There we go, I think that's looking cool. Now there are a couple more things you can do. You can change the colour of these. So under particle I'm just going to hide emitter for now. You can see that it says set colour here. Now you can change that to at birth, which is where you can just change the colour to whatever you want. Now they're red. Or you can change it to over life, which is the one we want, random from gradient, and from light emitter. Now these two are quite, I haven't actually looked at these two at all, I've never used them, but the one we want to use is over life. So now as you can see, we've got rainbows. As you can see, as the particles progress in their life, they change colour, which is pretty cool. But we don't want it to be rainbow, so where it says colour over life here, that should now be available to you. So you can come here and you can see you've got this little gradient type thing. Now you can click some of the examples here, so we can have white to kind of purpley black here. You can then like to green. This is a weird one. Now the one I generally use is blue, so what you can do is you can then go to, I like to go from a deep blue to a light blue, so it gets lighter and lighter. So maybe a deep dark blue at the start, then I'll kind of go to the middle roughly, drag that to the middle, then go to a medium blue, something like that. And then the last blue, we can then go to a super nice bright blue. Now that's even a bit dark, so I think I'm going to brighten up a little bit. Just kind of keep playing with it, and just till you get something you like, really. Something like that maybe. There we go, it looks a lot cooler. So we're pretty much almost done here, guys. You've got the, so now basically what you have is, you can obviously have your normal clip here, then the transition starts, the particles come in, it's overlaid on the scope, and the scope comes in, and then it carries on. There's obviously a lot of stuff you can play in here. You can add some shading in. If I add shading in here, you can see it changes it quite a bit, but you can obviously play with all the settings in particular. I don't really want to go into much of these because some of it can get quite confusing. You can change the transfer mode in the color overlife to add or screen. No, add. Add looks pretty cool. It kind of brightens the colors out a bit more. But yeah, that's the end of this tutorial, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and comment. Let's see if you can get 15 likes, maybe 20. If you haven't seen it already, be sure to go check out my weekly editing contest, which I uploaded yesterday. And I shall see you guys in the next tutorial.